to Design Lab. It's your virtual workshop series providing Gladstone community with ongoing training and support for a wide range of design and scientific illustration projects. We are your hosts. My name is Giovanni Mackey. I'm the creative director here at Gladstone.
And my name is Tammy Tolpa, and I'm the science illustrator here at Gladstone. Happy early DNA Day.
Yes, DNA Day. Yeah. That's what we're here to celebrate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about DNA Day.
Well,
what are we doing?
Yeah, DNA Day is it's next Thursday, and I didn't know why. And so I dug a little bit into it. And so it's the anniversary of the day when the Nature paper happened.
Oh, cool.
That where they sort of revealed the structure of DNA. And so I didn't know that. I didn't know there was a date or an anniversary. But do you know who drew the DNA for that paper?
I do not.
So it was Francis Crick's wife, Odile Crick.
You know what? I didn't remember that, but now that you're saying that, somebody said that to me not just pretty recently, as it related to another anecdote. So that's awesome. Yeah, another.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Apparently, one of their wives typed up the paper too. So they brought their wives in for sort of like the backup tasks.
It's not just about the lone scientist, right? There's always a man or a woman behind them, right?
But and she really was instrumental, I think, in sort of really visualizing that structure in a way that was shareable, right? Because without illustration, it's hard to share those ideas.
No kidding, right? Oh, that's awesome.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it is complicated, and it's not complicated, but it is a beautifully complicated structure that is a little tricky to draw sometimes, and oftentimes gets a little wrong or just a little bit too simple. So I think that there's, even in these 2D ways, and I think that's what we're going to demonstrate today, is these 2D renderings of it. You can add, I don't know, it can, you can still depict that spiraling
helical.
Thank you. That is the word I was looking for.
Helical shape.
Helical structure. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So why don't you start showing us that?
So I always start with a line. This one's 4 points. I'm going to select it and do effect, distort and transform, zigzag, right?
Yes.
And so this is your shortcut to getting sort of like the sine waves that you want. And, unless you're doing like Metallica DNA, you probably want it to be smooth. And then I always pick 2. And then, because I just want 2 turns of that helix. And then here, you can kind of decide, play around. Let's just say that for now. And then, I want to have the appearance panel open. So I just want to highlight how this is still that single line. I've just applied an effect to it, right? If I turn that off, it's just, I haven't added points. It's just an effect.
Yeah, excellent point.
I do Command C, Command F to copy and paste in front. And then I'm just going to nudge it. Whoops, I can see that I have a fill. Turn that off. I'm just going to nudge it to get it to where it looks like what I want it to look like maybe like that. And that's what I was talking about, where you have that major groove and the minor groove in your DNA. So already this looks a lot like DNA. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these both black. And then I'm going to make one gray just so that we can see it. No, only one. Okay. And so the one thing that's not quite right yet is that this gray needs to go under the black. No, this black needs to go under the gray and then over the gray here, right? So we need to edit our lines a little bit to get that helical nature. So I'm going to do object, expand appearance. And then now I have my 2 separate lines with points, and I'm going to use the scissor tool and I'm going to cut this segment, Command X to cut, Command A to select everything, and then Command F to paste in front of everything. And now I have my helix started, right? It goes under this one, over this one.
And that's important too, right? You've got your right-handed helix and not your left-handed helix, as is.
Or sometimes, yeah. Or sometimes you just see DNA that's like totally, they're not even.
Yeah, they're just.
It's not even helical. They're not overlapping, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I just saw one of those yesterday. So yeah, it's a super common mistake.
Yep. So you want to make
just
sure
like oversight, which you can. And what's really nice about this is I think creating the brush too is a great. There's an easy way to create this so that way you're ensuring that you can get that repeated. Yeah. So
yeah,
go on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's very important, and it's hard to do unless you kind of cut these things. So now I'm going to expand again. And this time I want to make sure I have stroke selected. And now I've got my shapes.
Yep.
And I know that your style of DNA brush is going to be a little different than this. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. But now I've got, this is basically editable shapes. And so I just want to trim them so that I have one piece of 2 turns that will repeat along the course of whatever line I draw, which is how the pattern brush works. So I want to trim the ends in such a way that they will be seamless when it repeats. And it's a little tricky, but it can be done. So I'm going to go just in from this edge here. Let me zoom in and let me show my guides. And I've never learned the shortcut for guides.
It's
I know.
Yeah, it's it's command colon, by the way. But yeah, it's not important. Yeah.
I've gone this long without it, but exactly. I just wanted to fess up.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to use an object to cut my 2 strands, or the 2 strands of the backbone below. So I draw an object over here. It has no fill and no stroke. It can be filled. It doesn't even matter. And I'm going to do object, path, divide objects below. And as long as it's on top of something, it will cut it. So I've got those 2 cut. And then I want to, this is the tricky part. I want to make a guide that goes all the way. I know. Are you going to have a better way?
I have a different way. But you know what? But you know what? I really appreciate this way because it really soothes my anal retentive heart.
So that little guide is what I'm going to use to make sure I'm cropping on this end.
That point of intersection.
Right.
Yeah. And use every last drop of that zoom function. Can't remember what the limit is, but it is ridiculous. It's like 17,000%, something like, or 6,400%. No, 64,000% you can zoom in. Use it all. You got it. Why not?
Yeah. I'm going to get rid of my guides because I'm done with those. All right. So there is my single piece of art that's going to repeat in my pattern brush. I'm going to group it. I'm going to copy and paste. And I'm just going to get a preview of like what that's going to look like.
Yeah. This is like proof of concept. This is repeating seamlessly. Yeah.
So I feel pretty good about this. So at this point, I want to add nucleotide bases, but I also kind of want to see how it's going to look as a brush. So that's what I'm going to do. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
I'm going to drag this artwork into the brushes palette, and it immediately asks me what kind of brush. I want to do pattern brush. And then in here, we have a bunch of things we can do. We can name our brush.
That's nice and tidy of you.
Yep, but not Birch. And it's screaming, but that's okay. So, so then you have these 5 kind of spaces where you can specify art that will be different features of the art as it goes along its path. So this is where this is what it will look like when it's traveling, in a straight line, right corners, left corners, the beginning of your line, and then the end of your line. And so I usually only use these first 3. And I usually use auto between for my corners. And you kind of get a preview of what this is going to look like. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to zoom out a bit. And so this is the original artwork, I'm just going to keep that. But as you can see, I have a brush now. So I'm going to make a line. I'm going to apply my brush to it. And there you go. I can see a seamless repeat of my DNA. And I'm pretty happy with that. I think it looks really good.
Oh yeah.
So,
and
I
then
don't hate it.
Yeah, don't hate it yet. Does so right now you just have a straight line though, but
Yeah.
but then and maybe we could do this, even play with this a little bit later and see how it kind of gets affected. But if what happens when you get a corner? Because you denoted those as specific corner types, but
Yeah.
I think that we were talking before about how you don't really need a corner for DNA because DNA doesn't necessarily turn a corner. It should usually be around a curve anyway. But
Right.
identifying when you've got a corner and when you don't, you can kind of see where, and you can kind of help troubleshoot there, I think.
Yeah, let's make a corner.
Right.
And so just point out that this is applied to a stroke. And so you can change the appearance of it just by making your stroke larger or smaller, right? So that's one way you can modify how it looks. You can apply it to any kind of shape. So that was a circle. Let's do something with angles. So I draw my shape. While it's selected, I select, oof, look at that.
Yeah.
So, oh, that's not what I meant to do. Yeah, so this is where you can see how the corners can get a little tricky. And so there's a couple options. Back in our brush, we could create custom corner artwork in our swatches and then choose that here if you don't want to try these settings. I think that's difficult because DNA is not one object that repeats, but it's those two turns that repeat. Yeah. So what I tend to do instead is just adjust my corners, until something looks nicer. And like you just said, you're not really going to have 90-degree angles on your DNA. And in fact, I think the coolest way to use the DNA brush is that nice, graceful stroke. Let's make this a little bit smaller, like that, And so if you get any weirdness, which I don't have, but if you had any weirdness, right, you would just edit these points and you would pull them out.
Exactly.
Or change them a little bit with the handles. And that's how you can handle any kind of potential weirdness you get with your corners. So I don't worry too much about pattern brush corners with DNA, but I would maybe for something else.
Yeah.
So now we have our, kind of artistic sort of DNA brush. You might stop here. I want to make mine a little more accurate. So I'm going to do those base pairs. So I'm going to go zoom in and go back to my original artwork. And then I'm just going to start adding the rungs of the ladder. And I'm going to do 2.5. And I like the rounded caps on the stroke for this.
Me too.
So, yep. And then I'm going to duplicate and make one over here. And then I'm going to use the blend tool to create the series of in-between ones. But first, before I do that, I'm going to add another stroke to this line so that I can get the illusion of two bases meeting together. So I'm going to add another stroke over here in the appearance panel. And I'm going to choose the gray that matches this. And then importantly, this stroke is going to be a dashed line so that it only goes about halfway like that. And this number, we can play with this a little bit. So kind of like that. So I'm going to do Command C, Command F to paste in front, hold the Shift key as I move it over. And then I'm going to use our friend, the blend tool. And I want to have, for 2 turns, I want to have 10 of those. So it's already set for 8, which will give us 10 plus these 2. And then I just click, just like we've done with the blend tool in the past, and it creates all the steps in between. And so that's a really quick way to get these all equally spaced, exactly the same. Because it's a blend, I need to expand it. And object. And then they're still grouped, but maybe that's okay. Or maybe I'll just ungroup them. And then there's a couple of things I want to do. I'm just going to sort of manually adjust all of these to look like they are living in between those two strands of the backbone. And then there's something else I want to do too, which is I kind of want, I want these, the sides that are gray to be touching the gray backbone. Uh-oh, something weird's happening with my computer.
What do you got? So is it snapping to a weird point? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so I'm going to, so I want to flip all these in the middle, basically.
Give us a little zoom into what you're doing, because it's kind of a small detail.
So I'm selecting all of these, and I'm going to do object transform each. I'm going to flip them 180. It's already set like that. And then I still have to do a little bit of tweaking. So for instance, I can only see the gray one here. So I'm just going to go over, make this a lot smaller, maybe like that. It's a little painstaking, but it's worth it to just have that single line with multiple strokes applied to it.
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, a little hand curation now. I mean, I think there's working with brushes in general is a huge payoff, right? Because you bank that, and then you can come back and use it lots of times. But there is a little bit of this sort of get things right now, because when it applies to the pattern, you just want it to be right. This is not a whole lot of. This is not a lot to ask to do a little hand curation afterwards, and you're just kind of tweaking these things.
Yeah. And the cool part is I can continue to tweak this, which is what I'm going to show you in a second. Okay. Oh, sorry. All right. So here's our updated art. And what I like about this is that you really get more of a sense of that helical nature, because the rounded parts point down here and they point up here. And we can really tell we have two strands that are sort of weaving in and out.
Yeah. And now you're getting that 3D effect. Yeah.
And so I'm going to hold down Option, and I'm going to drag this into my brush because I want to update that art. And unfortunately, I have to do those corners again. I couldn't figure out why. But that's all right.
And why did you hold down? Just a quick question, because I almost feel like I don't think that's wrong, but I don't understand why. What is a holding down option when you drag it into the brush? Does that do a thing?
Yeah, it's.
Well, oh, you're updating. That's what you're doing.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you're updating it into the brush you already established, into that little, and I think that's key too. The little section that hovers that is 3 wide, that one highlights, and that's the one you want to drop it into, because there are other ones you can, and maybe I'll touch on those later, but that's what you're updating in one segment.
Yep. Yeah. And then so now I can get a preview of what my new DNA brush will look like. And then you always get this option here. So if I were to say, it's basically saying, do you want this change to be reflected in all the lines and shapes that already have this brush? Or do you want to leave those alone? If I say leave strokes, it will make a new brush, but I don't want to do that. I want this to just apply to all the strokes and shapes that I already have. So I'm going to click apply. And then if I zoom out, I can see what my updated DNA strand and brush is doing. And so I really like this as your simple, basic DNA brush because it's very helical. It's very simple. You can customize it in all sorts of ways. I was going to show one more quick thing before you kind of take your spot in the spotlight.
Hold on. I feel like we really missed a moment there where like you did a reveal and we didn't really celebrate it.
Oh.
I kind of feel like we should rewind there a little bit, and you should can you back up? Can you undo?
So I dragged it over there. I don't even know if I need to do those corners, but we'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
Click OK, apply to swatches. Yes. And then There you go. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, excellent. That was amazing.
So yeah, basic DNA brush, super versatile. I was going to show one more thing before
so incredibly satisfying too, right? When that seamlessness is coming along. Because when I do it, I'm sure it's not going to. You're gonna like it. It's like, oh, and it applies, and then you're like, Didn't work out so well, but you can fix it. But how satisfying is it when it all just fits perfectly?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But
almost perfectly. Like, look, I can see there's a little, like these two. Let me zoom in.
yeah,
The spacing is a little imperfect here, right? Like these two are closer than those.
yeah. I mean, I
So,
noticed that right away. How awful is that? No, that's like not. That's like a detail that maybe you might see, but yeah, this is where you can, I guess, tweak it.
yeah, so I could just nudge these things a little bit, right?
Yeah,
And then do that same thing, drag it over there. Okay, light strokes. And it's already better.
yeah,
The thing that you didn't even notice.
yeah.
And I like to, and so I've done DNA brushes before where my starter art is basically like, whoa, basically like that piece
Right.
that repeats. And that is one way to do it. But what I like about doing the slightly harder half a turn, a whole turn, half a turn piece of art is that your ends are open like this.
Yep.
And I like that as an option for when you draw your line, to be able to have these open ends. I think that they look pretty nice.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
It's
So
a
really quickly.
it's a much nicer way to terminate the end than that little point, because it just then it kind of puts emphasis and it almost looks like a little like teardrop end, which is less it's just less appealing, I think.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference for these closed shapes, but yeah, for an open shape, I used to do my DNA brushes that way, and then I would expand them and cut them and trim them to get these ends. And I realized it's a little harder to visualize this, but the payoff is better.
Yeah, totally agree.
So the one thing I just want one more minute. So these are they all have a black stroke. If I open my swatches and I choose a color, it's not changing at all, right? It's still black. And so if you go into the brush and you look over here at colorization, this is where you can get some variation in your DNA strands. So if I were to choose tints, then it takes the stroke color that's applied to the line or the shape, and it uses tints of that to tint your DNA or whatever your pattern brush is. So if I were to change this, let me just get my swatches, to green, and this one, all it's doing is it's just taking the color of the stroke that we weren't even noticing before because it had the DNA brush. Now we're able to get a bunch of variations. And I find that tint one is really the only one I ever use. These other ones can get really weird and complicated. So I stick to the tints if it's appropriate to sort of make different colors with your pattern brush. And so this is, it's a cheat code that you still have your brush that's the black and the gray, and you can go ahead and recolor it any way you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, such an easy way to customize brush. And it really, and that way it's, you don't have to fuss around with recoloring or expanding or anything like that. Yeah. So cool.
And then this brush will live in this document, right, forever. But you could also, save it to a brushes library that you could then load in different documents.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to keep your wonderful DNA brush to be able to be used wherever and shared.
Or share it with some friends, which is I think exactly what we plan on doing. So I think now that we've made these brushes, we can share them out after. I mean, we made one brush. Let's see if we'll make another one. But yeah, we'll make them available after the program and downloadable. Probably on Hello, maybe just for Gladstone. But yeah.
All right. So do you want to make another brush?
Yeah. Let me see if I can do this. And now, so I think you went through a lot of these same steps. I have to switch. Who's sharing? Let's see. There we are. Okay. So I think you went through a lot of the same steps that I would have. Let me adjust my screen a little bit. Can you let's see? There we are. There's my menu. Yeah. Okay. So I think you went through a lot of the initial steps that I would have gone through, or actually you did exactly what I would have done. I would use that zigzag effect. I would have done the round corners. I would have used the brush, or excuse me, the blend to then create the sort of rungs of the DNA. The only other thing I think I sometimes will do is that I might add a little more swagger to the like, rather than it just being a perfect sine curve, I might just like lean it to one side, so that way it's just got a little bit more attitude. So that's what I did here. If you like, if you kind of like see if I made two of them here already, but I'm kind of so I just kind of took this, and you can do this a multitude of ways. You can do it when there's less nodes on here, or more. Let's see. Let me get back to the original form. Perfect. Okay. So if I just have this here, I can, this is perfectly symmetrical, but maybe I'll just have that leaning back a little bit more. You know what? I don't know where any of my tools are because this is a new setup for me. Let's see if I can find this. Here we are. Shear tool. Hit the shear tool up, and then you can just kind of pull it one way or the other. And I might give a little bit more, a little bit of an attitude. And then once I've done that, yeah. And like you said, oh, you know what I'm going to do too is I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to my layers pad, double click in here, and change the color of this because I cannot see what I'm doing with this color. And I was going to keep brown is horrible. Let's do orange. Nice bit of contrast.
I do that all the time.
Oh yeah, that's super handy. Like sometimes you're just working in the same exact color and you just cannot see your vector lines. So take advantage of that. All right, so now I'm just going to move this guy over and I want them to meet right in the middle. I think I was noticing that something was up there. Oh, I've already kind of jumped the gun. Want this.
So did you do that shear tool on two objects?
Did I do the what tool?
Or did you just cut that?
I didn't. That was like an artifact from something else. So please ignore.
Okay.
Basically, that should have been just clean, just like that. And the same thing here. Yeah. Please ignore the man behind the curtain. Okay. So basically, yeah, that's how I might modify it. And in my instance, what I want to do is, I think the level of detail that you went into was perfect for most applications. Most applications you're going to use it very small and down to that little like tiny icon size and or even smaller. And in that case, that level of detail is all that's really needed, because one of the key things that you want to try to be cognizant of when you're illustrating is that don't spend too much time on detail and nobody is going to see, especially as a professional illustrator. So let's not do that. But there are some instances where you do have very large sort of instances of the of a DNA that or whatever you're building that you do want to put a little bit more details into. And one of those details is having sort of an elegant sort of gradient or shadow effect. And that's part of what, like if you zoomed into yours, I can't do that, but because I don't have it with me, but basically it just looks pretty flat, right? But I think that's what I want to try to achieve. Here's the issue. Pattern brushes do not allow gradients in there. And they actually don't allow gradients. They don't allow transparency masks. They don't allow like a lot of these things, a lot of these ways that you can apply a gradient or a fade to something. So, but there is a workaround, and that one is using the blend tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create with the blend tool my fade, and then that can go along, and that I can expand. I don't think I can actually apply that to a brush, but I can expand it and then it can go into there. So a little bit more complicated piece of art, but here's how you do it. Basically, I took my curve and I split it right down. How inconvenient is that? I split it right down the length of one of these sides, and I did that actually. Yeah, actually back up because I thought this was an awesome thing that I was like, that is super convenient. If I go through the same process, say zigzag, get my smooth, say 15, and I'm just going to do 1. and say, okay, cool. And then I'm going to expand that. Basically, I don't get a node right in the middle, but I can do. I'm just all it goes to object path, and I'm going to add an anchor point, and that's going to put that anchor point right in the middle of that line segment. And that's exactly where I want it for that repeat. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to I'm going to slice these all up. So I want to cut these at all these nodes. So I'm selecting all of these with my direct select tool, and I'm going up to this little scissor tool to cut all those portions. Okay, so then I've got this line, this segment, and that segment, and I'm going to replicate these ones real quick and paste them in front and make them a little bit darker, just so that way I can see them and they punch up. And what I'm going to do with these guys is I'm going to make a little tiny segment at the front and the back there, and I'm going to delete the middle because I don't need that. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. And you have to mind you that these are not going to be as symmetrical because, oh, I didn't do that. I didn't pull it to the side. You know what? Let's do it now. Little shear tool action. These are not going to be as, you got to be a little bit more cognizant of the fact that, you can't repeat, or you can't, some of these portions are going to be unique in their shape. They're not going to be repeated, or like a mirror image or anything like that. Some of a little of this needs a little bit hammering, but that's sacrifices you make for, the details that nobody will see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this little portion here at the end, and I'm going to grab the color of this. So it looks like it disappeared, but it's in fact there. It's just colored the same as that. And here I've got my different color, my darker color, and that's the part that's going to feel like it's receding. So it's going into a shadow. And same on the other side of that point. And then this one again, I'm gonna color the same as the rest of the backbone of this part of the DNA. So I'm going to select both those elements. I'm going to blend them. I'm going to hit Command Option B for blend, and that's going to immediately just give me the blend based off of a preset, which I can also change using the commands. Command Shift B will give me the Command Shift B. No, come on. Oh, you know what? Maybe that might have been a custom preset. And again, it's like I'm playing with somebody else or driving somebody else's car. Let's see, blend options. Yeah, it hasn't been changed. So here I do want it on smooth color. I want those steps to create a smooth color. So I'm gonna say cool. And now I'm gonna select both of these, excuse me, the blended elements and this old part of the backbone, or this spine. Wow, these names are so very similar. But the new spine that I want to create out of that blend. So I'm going to say replace spine. That was a trick that you played with last time, and I love. And so there you go. Now I have my blend that's happening right along that spine, right along that backbone of that curve. And so I'm going to do the same thing here.
And those are still stroked objects, right?
Yeah, everything's still stroked. Yeah.
Cool.
And replace spine. Come on, you. I have to make sure to get the blend. Okay. And now I just need to quickly do all these guys too.
And so the spline that you're replacing is always behind. Is that right?
I think I forgot to copy these first. Yes, the spline you're replacing, I don't know, is it behind? There probably is an order that's important.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the new one is on top. That's what I think. So that's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah, I don't know. But if it's not working,
and it disappears.
Yeah. If it's not working for you, then it's for a reason, as is most everything with computers. So, because they're just following orders. So yeah, you should try that, the order of things, for sure. Okay, so let's get these together. Like those guys. Add that spine. Place spine.
And I think that original is it spline or spine?
Spine? Did I say spline?
No, I'm not sure. But I think the original one goes away, right? When you use it, when you put the when you put that effect onto the new one, I think the old one just goes away.
Yeah, that's correct. It disappears. Like it never happened.
Right.
What's going on here? Let's see if I can suss this out. Might be, oh, just misaligned. And what's going on with you? Somebody once said that they liked seeing us mess up.
Yes, I remember that because I like seeing people mess up too.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
because
the world's an imperfect
right,
place.
Right, exactly.
Okay, I just isolated those guys because I was having a real hard time getting a hold of it. And now I'm going to go back and replace that spine again. And now we should be done. Are we done?
Yes, look at that. Woo.
Okay. Okay, and now if I, maybe I should have had a before and after in this scenario, but that would have been smart. And yeah.
Oh, do you mean pre and post gradient?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's almost like I wanted to prove it to you that it'll bounce, on you, and it'll say, that's a feature that's not available with these.
Yeah.
So let's get a gradient going on this line. Stroke. Just get a little bit of a stroke here.
I think I've tried to do a blend on a pattern brush and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So I know that you're probably going to expand that, but I did try to see if that had changed and it has not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, which actually at this point, yeah, we could do the same thing. We can even pull that in. I'm going to delete these guys. These are, oops. Got to, I don't want anything selected because I'm gonna clean up my stock here. Okay. So yeah, if I grab this guy, which has a gradient along the stroke, and I try to pull it in here, and I define it as a pattern brush, it's going to throw me an error and say select artwork contains elements that cannot be used as pattern brush. And it's like, okay, which ones are those? It's the gradient. You can't do that. Now, if I've got a blend going on here and I go to apply that as a pattern brush now, what is it going to do? It's going to grab it. You actually can keep your blend in there. Yeah. So, yeah, no need to. Here's the question though. Once it is created, does it expand it for you? And it does. So that is a ton of little line segments that it is expanded. So you see the difference here where if I zoom way in, you can see they're all expanded segments. They still are just a little stroked line. But as opposed to these are unexpanded. But either way, you can sort of move forward with that, and you don't have to. Oh, you know what? Actually, I kind of screwed this up because I don't actually do this. Gosh. No, I'm serious. When I don't actually do it like this. I actually wouldn't do it along the entire thing. Gosh, I should get more sleep. Okay. No, seriously though. This is
now I need to know.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was like, oh, but you know what? Now I feel like I'm stifled here because now this is just made up of these tiny little line segments, and I don't feel like I can change that much. And I don't like to work that way. I don't like to work with it. I don't like to end up with a result where I can't tweak a line or even the shape of a line. Like that's yeah, that just seems like I've box myself into a corner, which I can't necessarily move out of. Um, so normally, actually, what I'll do, and this, when I did this, I was like, oh, this fade is happening further than I thought it was. You don't, I don't necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily recommend going edge to edge with that. Like you can basically just, contain that fade, so it's happening behind where that intersection happens. So if I'm, and also I totally screwed this up because I shouldn't have this fade on this side. Wow. This is amazing. Maybe I will completely re-record this whole thing so that way, or at least go through like I don't even know what, like a sped up version of this. But yeah,
like
so
a montage. You just need a montage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't do this. And I don't even know how to dig myself out of here because this segment is weird, and now I can't. Gosh,
I sort of thought you might do it as circles to create your gradient. No, but you still have the same problem.
As circles. Oh, you're saying like little. I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. Like little short segments, or just like tiny little dots, or what do you mean?
Circles for your blend instead of line segments. Wouldn't that also give you a gradient?
Either one.
But you still would have a lot of little objects.
Yes, you still would have a lot of little objects. And let me see if I can do this rapidly.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so yeah, just make this one. And let it down to your 4 points. And then this segment should stay the same. And this segment is the one that I want to shift. And I'm going to flip this around because this feels upside down to me.
Yes, I see what you're doing. Because that one's going to be behind the other one.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't need them both, but I do want this one to cut. And this one, I didn't want to go the full length. I just want a small segment here and then somewhere in between.
And you're trying to constrain that darkness to sort of like the middle of that segment?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. That segment behind. I'll make that one go away just for the time being so I can see what I'm doing. Blend those guys. I'm going to blend it by a certain number of steps. What is that? Blend. Keyboard shortcut for that. Smooth.
Sorry.
Saying it's smooth color, but I don't see a smooth color.
Mm-mm.
It's going to 2 different colors. Yeah. That's weird. All right. So I'm going to select both those things. Blend. Place spine. Oh, but that's too long. Oh boy.
What's that?
I have no idea. That's interesting. I think it's because because I reversed the direction of that spine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Back. Again. One way to reverse a direction of a spine is to use the pen tool and select on the opposite end, and it'll think that is now the front. You ever done that?
No.
Okay, what do I want to do here? I want to end the spine right at this node. I'm going to lock that down, and then I think I can, if I use my pen tool, it should recognize that point. It should be stuck to it. So I'm going to select that portion, copy it, and I'm going to paste it. Paste it there. Okay. And now that I have that blend and that portion of the spine, then I can say replace spine. And is that working for me? Yes. Okay. So that's just that section. And then I keep the rest of it as a single stroke. So that's basically the concept there, that you're basically creating a blend with the blend tool. It's going to expand, but you can keep the backbone of this as a single vector stroke or Bezier curve that then will be maintained even if you expand that brush from this point forward. So it's not like you're sort of losing it. It's not like you're consolidating that blend to just a certain point. So let's see if I could just create similar instance here. And then,
so those are two lines on top of each other, right? Two strokes?
Yes, exactly. Well, one's a blend with two little strokes at the end that are sitting on top of another stroke. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
And then, so I'll do a very similar thing here. I'll create or cut a little section. I'll select these two parts on the outside. I copied that before I started making it. So now I'll set that behind. And then I will, let's see, change the color of this guy. It's not behind, so I had to move it behind. I can check my layers just to make sure that this is all in order. And now I can see those guys are up on top.
Your layers, your layers are cut off of the screen share.
Oh, are they? Let me pull that in.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah. So I can select those guys and make sure that they're on top, and I'm going to blend those together. And that's happening in the reverse order. So let me just fix that. I could have done that without undoing. Could have just altered the blend. But both work. And then, this right now, I think I have my strokes set to, the strokes are set to beyond the terminal ends. So let's go back into, where's my appearance? Around with the path window. Let's see, stroke. Go. And those are set to end. So why am I seeing it? There we go. Must have moved that. Okay, so now I've got my elements finally. And I can set them. And I can also squish this a little bit. Use my object select tool. Why am I not seeing the bounding box? Everything. Show. Saying how like when you switch systems, it's just like every single thing you have to reset because you're just a creature. Just become accustomed to.
You have a lot of custom settings, is what I'm learning.
Yes, I think that's the take home. What am I looking for? Bounding box. I can't remember that set.
Show. Oh, it was there.
It was there.
Show bounding box. Yep.
Thank
right
you.
there. Oh. You got it.
All right. So now, yeah, I can make an adjustment there and make that feel a little bit better. So yeah, okay, here's the key thing. Once I have this established, and that's weird. Wait, that's not really what I want. Select these guys. Have everything. If I move you, yep. So now when I make that coincide there, where that overlaps, then I get that 3D effect, and I want that to repeat, obviously, but maybe we have to make a couple of instances of this so that way I can stop it where I want it. So you used a guide to basically cut it perfectly at the end, but I think it allows for a little bit more slop, and I don't do that. There's actually a trick you can do when creating these brushes where you can adjust the bounding box of it. So let's just show that, and then I think we can wrap up. So this this ends at this point here, and we'll do this same, shall we, on the other side? Yeah, I want to get this guy. Yes. Why can I not see you? There you are. And I'm going to grab the whole thing and make him repeat perfectly there. Just make sure, yep, it's just hitting right there. And that's going in front. Okay, so, but I don't need 2 instances of this. I just need this little bow tie shaped word, I guess you pointed out. So I don't need that blend. Don't need this little part of the blend here. Okay. So, and then I also do exactly what you do, which is you use the blend tool to then make those individual rungs of it. And I'm just going to do this real quick and dirty so that way I don't have to sit through me zhuzhing it up, getting it just. I was waiting to see when zhuzh would come into this conversation. Yeah, it's on heavy rotation. Nice. And yeah, I'll just kind of bring these in. This. Oh, wait, actually, I don't want to mess with that one. Don't waste your time on things that are not necessary. Just going to do these guys. And there. Okay. And let's see what that looks like. I don't need these guys. And yeah, I think we're pretty good. And that actually, I think, ideally, actually, this would be, I know this is the midpoint of this line. So ideally, these would be hitting right there at that midpoint. And then I can use that as a marker. Because otherwise I know that'll double up when I go to do that. So I'll go in here and actually, let's just take care of that right now. Go into my rungs group, and I will, right now it's on, it's on, I need my alignment tool palette, everything. Okay, here we go. So in my alignment tool palette, I can go over here. I can tell it's on use preview bounds. If I deselect that, then it'll just, the bounding box will go right around to the edge of the line, not to the edge of the stroke. So that's exactly what I want. I'm going to make sure that I'm on that. And I'm going to pull this out until it snaps to that point. So now I know that it's perfectly in line with that point there. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And I can verify that by hovering over, and I can see that that's all terminating. So now we're looking good. So cool. So I could fuss with it some more, but for demonstration purposes, which this is, I'm going to go ahead and pull this in and see where we're at. And I'm going to replace it just like you did my old one. And then here, I already noticed that I can see some some weird stuff going on. I wanted to note that you don't even have to denote a corner. If a corner is going to get weird, or if it's just like distracting, you can say none. And then you can just you just never use a corner. Or if you do, then you can spot it very easy. So let's see how this turned out. So let's put a line in here and apply this stroke, and boom, immediately I can see that there are issues with it. So let's fix that. What I'm going to do is I'm not going to actually fix my original. I'm going to go in and edit the brush as it stands right now. So the way you do that is you go into the brush itself. In fact, I can just like clear the slate here, and I'm going to grab that brush. I'm going to bring it back into my artboard. And right now, this is how the brush palette sees it. And the key thing here is that it's got this bounding box on it. And that bounding box is denoting where the repeat is occurring. So if I bring that bounding box in, I'm selecting just the ends and bringing in just to terminate, right, splitting that rung down the middle and right at that peak point where it's curving. Then I grab this guy all over again. And after I adjust the bounding box and drag it back in. And this time I do hold down Option if it because I'm replacing this element. I'm making sure that I'm over this main segment, drop it in there, and that is looking better. I'm just looking here and I can see that is better. So let's throw another stroke line on there. And sure enough, sort of, what's happening here on the ends? The ends are not behaving. Why not? Any ideas, Tammy?
So this is that bounding box that you use sometimes for patterns too, right?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, are we sure it was automatically generated when you made your brush, right? Because I've used that before with patterns, and you have to make sure it's in the back, but I assume it's in the back.
So you're right.
Brush generated it, right?
So what is happening, is that if there's material there, it'll see it, but it's there. If I expanded this, basically, you would see this portion of the curve occurring
everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So they're overlapping right now, and they'll always seamlessly overlap. But the reality, but they are there. It's not like I've gotten rid of them. So yeah, if I made it break a little bit, then it might even reveal itself. But for all intents and purposes, you'd never know it, except for on those ends. So my solution here would really be that you could create create ends there, and you could create another blend that would basically just fade out these ends. And I've done that actually, and I'll complete that for this brush, and I'll share that out because I feel like that's a nice little elegant way that you can't fade them out to zero transparency, but you can fade them out to completely white, and then be able to apply that, especially on anything with a white background. Yeah. Right,
because no transparency in a brush, right?
Exactly. No transparency in a brush. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to share. And
I was just going to ask if you could zoom in and we could see that overlap.
Yeah, I just did. And I was like, oh, look that doesn't look right. So let's fix that. So there is, so you don't have to, let's fix this. Let's just delete this end and this end. And let's see if we can't just fix it with just extending the endpoints. Let's see what happens. It's also, troubleshooting this. It's a thing. Definitely need to troubleshoot it. So I'm going to replace this again. Option, drag into that space. Let's see, apply to the stroke, and one more. Yeah. And here we get the sort of partial. No, that worked out pretty good, actually.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
That cut end.
Yeah.
That we like to see.
Yeah. But two other instances kind of came to me on that, and that's where I think I'm gonna mess around with and See, one was where the double helix unravels and it goes into two independent strands, or parallel strands, maybe for like an insertion point or a deletion point, with a CRISPR model in there.
Yep.
Or you could have like a flow fade on. But there you go. There you have your blend happening in a brush and can be infinitely long. Yeah. Oh, should we?
Well done.